Okay, so today we're actually going to be doing a vehicle rig. Most of my rig demos so far have been character specific, and we do have a character involved in this, but this is primarily for a motorcycle rig. So this is a two-wheeler vehicle rig. This is my first time actually setting up official thing. I modeled it and textured it, and now I rigged it, and I actually like it. It's pretty cool, so I'm going to go ahead and show it, the basic setup. So, couple of disclaimers. The model design itself is from a concept called the VMAX, the Yamaha VMAX. This is a asset for an animation coming up that will involve some characters from the show Fate Stay Night. And in particular, this is from a book called Fate Zero. And it's a motorcycle that the character will be using in her animation thing. So, I do not have the character model that actually goes with this completed yet. I'm still working on her, but I do have Nell. So we're going to go ahead and unhide her, and you can see that Nell is now part of the thing. So she rides. All right, so the first feature that I want to show is the auto-rolling wheels. So one important thing to note about this is if you know how to set this up, the way that a lot of people do it is with expressions. I do not like expressions. I try to avoid them if there is any other way to get the behavior you want, because they usually evaluate every single frame, and there's going to be about 2 or 3 characters combined in this scene, and at least 2 of them are going to be interacting with the motorcycle. One's going to be a rider, another is going to be the person evading or attacking or whatever. So I did not want to have to deal with expressions, pushing that and doing whatever there. But if you look at this, notice that the wheels rotate slowly when it rotates forwards, and then when it goes faster, the wheels rotate, to match that speed. Also, if the character is moving to the side, the wheels also rotate. So that technique is done with no expressions. That's actually using a set-driven key, and I measured the distance to ascertain the radius and then multiplied it by pi. Okay, so when I bring this up and down, notice that we create some kind of automatic suspension here. Again, that does not use expressions. That uses a parent constraint, which is activated with limiting and a little bit of set-driven key stuff to get that effect. Also, on this, notice that I have the ability to turn the ball from green to red. There's actually a sequence where the character is going to transform while on the bike into a different form, and the ball is going to go from green to red to simulate that. Notice that we have this here. Normally, I would have both of the character's feet on the this object here, but notice that as I rotate this, the character's foot rotates with it. And conversely, if we go here and we say pedal push, the character can push that in, and it that acts as what that's supposed to be there. This object also can move and adjust. Now the exhaust, the way it's built, can kind of create this sort of a puttering effect based on the engine, and I can reposition it however I want based in animation. The wheels can, in addition to their auto rotation, they can be rotated separately. I can turn wheel auto spin off, which you will see on or off if I want. And notice that the squash controls are on right now. I can turn that off and then go here. Now what's interesting about this is that, let's say that we're moving forwards and we always want the bottom to be on top. So now notice that we want to squash here, but this is already here. So what we can do is reposition this, and now when we squash, notice that it's right here. And that squash is completely dependent upon the position of this controller. So you can see how we can get some really nice cartoony squashing. And all we have to then do is match up this object. Actually, I believe it would be this object. And we're going to get a pretty nice results there. Okay. And as you can see, we're creating kind of a really, maybe that's a really drastic jump in suspension, and it goes squash, and then in the next frame it returns, and that gets zeroed out. So. Okay, so you can kind of tell how that gives you a lot of nice ability to create some nice overlapping, some anticipation, and have a lot of fun with that. So, The suspension is keyed out, it's locked with the exception of the translate Y, because that's all that's really for. You cannot rotate this because of the way it's built and constructed. I did not want to have people messing with that. It's primarily a suspension control. The full character, this is a full character rig, so that means you have all abilities, center of gravity, all that good stuff. She can rotate. The wheels, or actually the front wheel rather, has a steering mechanism that is correctly oriented. Notice that it moves the hands and the shoulders, but I did not have it affect the center of gravity, and the reason for that is I wanted to have separate animation control of that. So what I would do is I would actually key it like this maybe, and have her leaning and her weight shift be independent of that. But notice that the hands do follow. Okay. Also, I have this, which allows me a different axis of control. This is the correct axis of control, but it's at a weird angle. If I wanted more of a orthographic angle, I could use this one. So I have two different pivoting options like that. Also notice that this has squash and stretch as well. And the squash and stretch is affected by translation, and it is affected by scaling as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and reposition this back at 0. Let's take a look at some other features real quick. So we'll turn squash and stretch off because you can see how that's pretty cool there. While we're here, we have the disc spin ability. In addition to the wheels auto moving, if you wanted to have kind of like a spinner effect, you could use disc spin. And basically what that will do is you can either go forwards or backwards depending on how you want to do it like that. This is a system that will basically allow the wheel to follow in rotation here, despite that it's completely translatable here, and it works into play with the suspension. So the wheels can be translated directly up or down. Let's say that we start rotating this, and now if we were to try to use this to lift it, notice that it comes up at an angle. If we still wanted to go straight up or down, we always have this separate control that will allow us to use world-based translation. Okay. This, of course, occasionally will be able to do this for the shaking. This comes out like that. And let's see, it's pretty good there. Okay. So the next thing to see is we have the pivot controls. Okay. So a common thing for a motorcycle to do is kind of swerve like this. I mentioned before this could not be rotated. However, if let's say that we lift this in the air, so it's down, it bounces in the air, and now we want to flip this over. Notice that this can be, flipped kind of orthographically like that. Okay. In addition, this object here can create a wheelie effect. But when we create that wheelie effect, notice that both wheels are flowing. We don't want that. We just want this one to go because it's one connected to the ground. So what we would do is we would zero this out, and we would turn wheel auto spin off. Okay? And then what I would do is I would take this object, maybe bring it out of the ground a little bit. There it goes. Okay. Now notice that that is the only wheel that is auto rotating. Okay? So both of these can be turned on or off. Let's say at that point it runs into something, and now we want to pivot that and bring that up like that. And then we would want to turn this one off. Okay? And this one would be turned on. Okay? So now, this object will auto-rotate. And this one will not. So again, as you can see that there's quite a bit of control there that allows you to do all that. So let's go ahead and zero all this out. Okay. In addition, we can take this extra pivot control and have this character kind of do this kind of a thing. So you can animate a quick turnaround very easily. So these are just different pivoting options at different points. Now, notice if you look at this terrain, you will see that if I go to shading, wireframe on shaded, you'll see that this terrain is kind of uneven. This is another technique I have. So let's go ahead and turn wireframe on shaded off. And if we look at how this behaves at the moment, you will notice that it goes right through it. All right. So this isn't perfect, but it's pretty interesting here. So if we zero our terrain system out, and we then go to terrain follow, now look what happens, the behavior we're then able to get. Notice that it will follow the terrain. Okay. Alright, so that is a, you notice that the controller kind of jumps ahead of it a little bit. That is because what I'm using for this technique is, again, no scripting or expressions, but I'm using a combination of some utility nodes and some geometry constraints to with some helper objects, which is basically conforming to the ground. Now we can get a little bit nicer results, but unfortunately a little bit less control by using a motion curve. But it has to be able to use that motion curve to effectively work. So this is to show that you can indeed do that. So let's go to Animates, Motion Paths, Attach to Motion Path, make sure that everything is working, and it is. Apply, close. Now notice that if I hit play, it follows the curvature, very well. And notice that we can see it doing so right there. So let's undo that. Go back before that ever happens. So this does nothing now. Excellent. Okay. So let's turn the motion path off. So you can see that it follows a motion curve. It the wheels can either auto follow or not auto follow. Terrain follow can be turned on or off. And the final thing I want to show is global scaling. So the bike can be global scaled. This is the character's master control. You could attach a scale constraint to this, but you could either select them both and notice that the entire system can be scaled up or down with no double transformations, and that's working well as well. Now the final thing I want to show is the GUI. So as the character is steering, we can actually turn on the HUD display. Now, this is a kind of an interesting concept. The first thing is that we have all of these speedometers and here, let me turn shading, hardware texturing to multiply, apply, close. This will kind of show you what we're doing with. Okay. All right. So you can see how kind of we have like glowing, transparent objects, and you can see that better if I just create an ambient light real quick and position that. So you can see that a little better there if I render. Okay, so you can kind of see how that's a glowing speedometer. It's got an RPM gauge and a fuel gauge. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Alright, so let's turn our ability to select geometry off. And now notice that we can actually animate all of this. So we can have this kind of come here and then do this. Like I said, all this can be animated, it can be translated, maneuvered, basically wherever we want. And the cool thing about this now is, let's say that, well, I didn't show this part as well. Obviously the character needs to be able to rev. So what we would do is we would select these two locators, and, she can rev the bike. But in addition to that, if we were to steer this and change position, notice that the entire system moves. Now, if you wanted to, for some reason, adjust the size or position of the entire group of GUIs, you can do that using its master. But the basic key behind this, what we actually, the reason I did this was to create kind of an Iron Man, interface that could be interacted with, basically by dragging and moving through the air. So what this will actually do now is she's able to be, while she's driving, let's say that she's here and this targeting system shows up and it comes up and it goes like this, and maybe it's like that, and then comes out. Okay, so now she's seeing here, but this is in her way. She doesn't want to see this or this, so she goes up here and she kind of grabs this thing here, and we select this and maybe this. Okay, and then we just kind of go to world and we go like that. So notice that she's now moving this, so she can kind of maneuver the little GUI system out here where she wants it, and she would kind of go like that, and the thing would go flying, and then she can just maneuver pieces where she wants. So she could grab like this and maneuver that over there, and just kind of reorient stuff while she's driving, which kind of is a cool effect. And the whole system, of course, follows as she steers. Okay, And this constraint, which is following with this object, also we have the brakes, which can be reoriented and everything. That all is based on weights, which can be animated on or off as well. So we can actually turn this to 0, and then reposition this, and now the steering will no longer affect the hand anymore, and she can do whatever she wants. And that's the same way that we would take this and put it on the ground and get off the bike or get knocked off the bike or whatever. So as you can see, it's a very powerful system. So let's turn show none, show nerves curves, grab everything, zero that all out. Okay. Actually, I don't want to do that. Let's take no, hide it. Let's do that now. Take all that. 0. Okay. Show Shift H. Show polygons, and we're good to go. Okay. So now let's take this final object here, turn HUD controls off, and it just kind of gives us a nice, kind of an extra benefit. We can take the kickstand, kick that back, and we're good to go. And once again, we have a pretty nice motorcycle rig. So this has most of the main features I could think of. We have 2 different methods of auto terrain detection. We have 2 different methods of steering. We have a GUI system that can be adjusted and maneuvered around. We can see that it interacts with the driver pretty well. And for the sake of my animation, I think it'll do really well. It's also a low poly bike. The entire polygonal bike itself is only a little over 6,000 faces, and so it works really well as perhaps a game asset or something like that. And it's got pretty nice functionality for most things as far as what I could see. Now, again, this is my first vehicle rig, so if there are any concepts or pieces that you would like to see in a vehicle rig that I have not set up here, please let me know. Any TDs that see anything I did here that could be done more efficiently or better, please also let me know if you have any suggestions or advice on that. And I really appreciate you guys giving me the time to go through my vehicle rig. So thank you very much.